speaker. If it's your first week at our church, come back next week. Don't think that this week is what every week is like. I need to preface that. There is likely to be tears today. I cry when I speak. I don't know why. Well, I kind of do, but I cry. It's what happens. So when it happens, and it's going to happen, we'll roll with it, right? We'll roll with it. And in fact, it might be quite moving. So for the first time, I normally just do bullet points, but I've actually written word for word because I thought at some point someone might actually have to step up and read it. And so I went to ChatGPT and I pasted the message into ChatGPT and just said, look, don't change any of the words, right? Because it's spirit-led, spirit-inspired. But don't change any of the words. But like if it just doesn't make sense or read well, just let me know if I need to change anything. And this is what ChatGPT said. Thank you for sharing your talk, David. It's deeply moving, honest, and spiritually rich. I've read through it carefully, and overall, it reads clearly and powerfully. You've conveyed your journey with vulnerability and faith, and the structure flows well. So that's GPT's review of today's message. All right? So let me start. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now, to say that he is my shepherd means that I'm a sheep, and I have to accept that I'm a sheep. David, who wrote the Psalms, was a shepherd, and sheep are stupid. Sheep they're really quite dumb. If one runs because it gets frightened, the others just run with it. If one jumps over a stick, the next ones will just jump over the stick. If you move the stick, they'll keep jumping over the invisible stick. They're not smart creatures. We went to a farm visit as a family, and there was a sheep farm, and the farm workers were out there. They had their buggies and had the dogs, and the dogs were rounding up the sheep. And one of the sheep just got separated from the flock, and it was very clear where the sheep had to go, but the sheep was like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And the dog's barking at it like, you know where to go and do what you're told. And the sheep literally just fell over. It just fell over. And so they had to pick up the sheep, put it on the back of the buggy, and continue on. And now, knowing that David was a shepherd, he also knew that there were times when he is known to have fought lions and bears and to protect his sheep, and he says that God will protect him. So acknowledge that I'm a sheep, and acknowledge that God will do what he can to protect me. The verse says, I shall not want. Now, I've read the Bible since I was young, and I was like, the Lord is my shepherd that I don't want. And so I was like, you don't want the shepherd? I don't understand. But there's lots of things in the Bible that don't make sense, right? And so you just keep reading and you move on. But as I got older, I realised that I shall not want, because then there's different interpretations and different, like, where they interpret the words differently. And it's other versions say, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. The Lord is my shepherd, I have all I need. And so the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want for anything. I appreciate different versions of different translations of the Bible sometimes. For those new to their faith, and I see Psalm 23 as a journey, so we're going to go on a journey this morning. And I see Psalm 23 as a bit of a journey. And for those that are new to the faith and have put their faith in Christ, it's like a declaration of their new status, like the Lord is my shepherd. Like, this is where we start. We start by recognising that I'm just a stupid sheep and he's my God. And so that's kind of the start of the journey. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Now, I haven't been to the Middle East, but when I think of the Middle East, I don't think green pastures. But if I'm a sheep, then a green pasture is everything, right? And so David's saying that he makes me lie down. in green pastures. Now, God doesn't make us do anything. God gives us free will. And as I'm looking at this and going, well, you don't make us do anything. But in the start, God's saying, God makes us lie down. My interpretation of this is God asks for nothing. Like he asks for nothing. You're not in debt to him. He's forgiven you. He's not a slave master. He's the opposite, right? He's your provider. And so he's saying, I'm your shepherd. You want for nothing. I want you to lie down. I'm going to make you lie down. Then he leads me beside the still waters, and he restores my soul. So God then leads and we choose to follow. Like we choose to follow. And it's in the quiet places that God meets us. So the image is still waters. Now sheep don't drink from rushing waters. They don't drink from a stream because if they fell in, they would drown, and they'd be frightened by the rushing water too, right? So it's still waters because God doesn't want to frighten the sheep. He doesn't want to frighten the sheep. It's a new relationship, right? If this is a journey and you've accepted he's your shepherd and he makes you lie down in green pastures, and then he doesn't want to frighten you away, and so he leads you beside still waters where he can restore you and heal you and renew you. He doesn't have the cattle dogs. He doesn't have the dogs, chasing you, nipping at the heels, making you go in the right direction. He actually leads from the front. He's building trust. And we're learning about his love at that point. So then the journey continues, so that he's done that, and now he leads you in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So it's time to move. You've got a full belly of grass. You've experienced his grace and his love. You've realised that he's safe and he wants the best for you. So it's time to start walking the paths of righteousness, letting go of behaviours that and attitudes that prevent complete freedom. We like familiarity, right? We resist change because change could be bad. Like at church, I could close my eyes now and tell you who's sitting here and who's sitting there, who's sitting here and there and there and there and there, right? Like we come into church and we just like familiarity. I was on a plane once and I was always a bit concerned when on a long flight who you're going to sit next to. Are they going to smell, right? And are they going to talk to you? And I was on this plane, there were 3 seats. It was me and a couple with a young baby. And I was like, oh, that's okay, that's fine, babies are cool. Like, they might cry, but that's, it could be worse. And so the hostess comes up to me and says, would you like to change seats? And I didn't want to offend those people, and I also thought they're going to put me in a worse seat. And so I said, no, I'm fine, thanks. And then, are you sure? I said, yep. And then she came back to me a couple of minutes later, and she says, I've got a seat up the front. Would you like to change seats? I said, no, thanks. And because I'm in my cocoon, right? Like I've got my window seat. I'm in my little cocoon, and I'm quite happy with where I am. I didn't realise that the couple next to me wanted me to move either, right? Because they're being on, yes, right? Like get out. Like we want the seat. And I didn't even hear the fact that she said she had a seat up the front of the plane. And so then I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't trust this air stewardess. I didn't trust that there was something better for me. So I stayed there. And whilst I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, they now hate me. There's a seat up the front. And I didn't take it. Sometimes we think it's better the devil you know. So it comes down to, do we trust him? Do we trust him? Because he wants to lead us down paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So what are the things then? He asks nothing of us, but there are some things that he wants us to let go of. There are some things that he wants to set us free from. And so he wants to set us free from greed. Because greed and hoarding wealth to overcome feelings of inferiority or to overcome feelings of insecurity. And God's saying, you don't need that. Let go of greed. Let go of unforgiveness. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. Let go of envy, wishing what others have and wanting what others see. And you miss out on the joy. You miss out on joy. Selfishness, wanting to be served other than serve. But wanting to be served just leads to loneliness and isolation. Immorality, that which promises beauty but leaves you with ashes. Self-hatred, anxiety, living in the fear of the unknown. So God says, yes, lie in the green pastures, lead you beside still waters. Now let's walk. Let's actually now see you, you've experienced me, but there's more. There's more. But you need to be set free of these things. There's a story that of how to catch a monkey. So if you want to know how to catch a monkey, you may have heard this, is that you put a banana in a container where the hole is big enough for the monkey's hand to go in, but once he grabs the banana, he can't take his hand out of the jar. And I'd wondered whether this was an old wives' tale, so I'd looked it up this week, and I thought I'd show a video of it. And I did see a video of it, and it was highly disturbing. And so it was actually quite distressing. And so I thought, no, that's really going to upset people. So I'm not going to show it. That desire to, I want that thing. And even as the hunter is getting closer to the monkey, and the monkey's getting more and more distressed, he still holds that banana, right? He won't let it go. And God's saying, let it go. Because you become trapped, and you become a slave to the thing that God wants to set you free from. So though I walk through the valleys of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. We're not immune to life as a Christian, and the valleys of the shadow of death, that imagery is so strong. It's just so strong. The valley of the shadow of death. It's beautiful in its depth and its darkness. And there's little that can prepare us for that. Like for those valleys, they come, and if you've not been in a valley, and the first time you experience a valley, it's really hard, really, really hard. It's a part of life. It's a part of the Christian walk. If you've been told to come to Christ and everything will be good in life, and that God will just walk you through everything, and He'll bless you and look after you and keep you, and everything's going to be great, then you have been lied to. And things are not fabulous. Things are not always wonderful as a Christian. And let's pray. And they're not always great. We're not immune to anything. So Christians will just as equally face serious illness, financial distress, unemployment, heartbreak, broken relationships, be a victim of crime, lose a loved ones, have lifelong dreams dashed. We're not immune from any of these things. There's a song that we sing here, and it says, "You're never going to let me down. You're never going to let me down." That's why I'm not on the singing team. I don't know who wrote that. I don't know if they were a new Christian. I don't know if they're delusional. But to say you're never going to let me down, I think God has let me down so much in my life, so much. And because of my expectation of what God was, because of my expectation of what God would provide. And so there are times when I've been really disappointed with how things worked out. I'm going to share one of those times now. Tissues are ready. If you're a sympathy crier, you need to be ready too. All right. So even if you aren't touched by the words, I mean, ChatGPT thought it was pretty good, but yeah, if you're a sympathy crier, so. This is 2 pages down. Anyway, so I'm in my early 40s, not now, but at the time, right? So in my early 40s, I had a stable employment, financial security was good, I had a good marriage, healthy kids, life was going pretty well. And this is going to sound arrogant, but I had this job and everything I touched turned to gold. Like it was really, I was just in this really good place. And the future looked great and things were fabulous. And then in 2019, I changed churches and came here. And then that was a turning point. I actually walked away from that job because my boss was a sociopath, and it finally just wore me down, and it broke me mentally. I spent 6 months out of work. I eventually got a job that was a poor fit for me. It wasn't right, but I'd been out of work, I needed the money. And I prayed a lot about it and sought thankfulness and wanted to be thankful, and despite continuing difficulties, it was really challenging, but I figured, well, life's not easy, you know, just press on, push on, push on. And it wasn't great, and then I just committed myself to overcoming the difficulties and feeling like I had to overcome and achieve. And then COVID hit, and that added further to the stress, and the employer ultimately determined that I was not suitable, and I could not have disagreed with them. So I was back to unemployment, back to prayer, anxiety, opportunities that dried up. And unemployment sucks, like it just sucks. Kept praying, what more can you do? And so I got another job, which was good and looked promising, and it was a big pay cut, but it was manageable. Living in a house, and it was a 1960s house. It was really reaching the end of its life. My boys are getting older. We had to make a decision what we're going to do. If we sold it, it would have been land value only. So I did the maths, and you know, is it worth knocking down and rebuilding? And I even went to a Christian counsellor, and you know, what do I do? And he said, well, you got to. And I prayed about it, and eventually we said, oh, we'll do it, right? So we'll build this house. And our elderly neighbours who we were looking after throughout COVID actually asked us to move in with them, and which was going to certainly help financially. And so we were like, yeah, that's good, we'll do that. And we'll see how that goes. And so they're in their 80s, and lovely couple, no kids, and we've known them for 15 years. And so we moved in with them and knocked the house down. And so this job that I'd moved into was going well. COVID was still happening, and the business thrived during COVID. It sold wine. And it was nuts. Like, business was booming, like it was just crazy, and I was in my element, and we expanded globally, and so it was really, things were going really well. And then COVID stopped, and people stopped drinking, and then they went back to work. And so business stagnated, and I was back to uncertainty and more prayer, and it was just like this cycle. It was like ever since I walked into this stupid building. And I'm not bad at my job, like I'm actually okay at it, right? Anyway, so praise God, I secured another job, and things were going well, and I considered it to be stable, and I saw myself being there a long time. The house build was meant to be 11 months, 18 months later, it was full of defects, no sign of ending, a builder that just continually lied, no end in sight. All their money was gone, the bank's money was gone. We're still living with the neighbours, we're heading on to 2 years. My family's struggling with that. I was okay because, you know, I'm pretty easy to please, but it was a real struggle. I'm now 50. You wouldn't believe it looking at me, right? But well, I'm not now. I'm now 51. But at the time I was 50, and the house is full of defects. Right? We can't cancel the contract because no other builder will take it on, and we've run out of money anyway. There's no money left. And then overnight, this new job that I thought I'd be in for 10 years looks like it's going to go. I'm praying, I'm an ugly crier too, so otherwise I'm pretty attractive. I didn't think there were many jokes in this when people said it was going to be funny. I was like, not really, but I can always try and pull a few out. All right, so anxiety wakes me up and it stays with me. It's just my companion now. I can't afford to rent a house, right, and we're paying mortgage on a defective house. I'm looking to lose my job, and it's probably the last roll of the dice, right? A string of jobs that have been lasted 2 years or less is not a great look on a resume. And whilst I'm, I'm not bad at my job, I'm maybe okay at it, but perhaps that was in the past. And I also understand that people in this room have faced worse situations than this, right? So this is not a pity party. There are worse, people have faced worse and people will face worse. I understand that. But for me, this was real and I was struggling. The valley of the shadow of death. So I begged God for relief. Just help me. So I do what I can, right? Hey, Brad, if my shoulders start doing this, you'll have to get up here. But I'm not there yet. So I wake up, go for a run, go to work. I can't quit. I can't quit. And then one morning I'm driving to work and some... Where's your break? Oh, you need a microphone.
I think you got it.
I don't know if no, this is I've been the easy bit. This is the hard bit. All right, here we go. Start reading. I say ChatGPT liked it, but start reading from there, and I'll come back to you in a minute.
One morning I'm heading to work and at a very literal crossroads in life. I pull over and pray, desperate. I see unemployment as almost inevitable. I've got kids in key years at school. We'll need to sell the house, take a massive loss, be in debt, move away, with a wife equally as broken as me. Struggle to find minimum wage work if I could even pull myself out of bed. And what of my testimony? What impact would my failure have on the faith life of my family? What testimony is that of God's provision? God, how did it come to this? I've sought to be faithful. I was not blaming God. I didn't have the energy, but I was at a loss and could not see any light ahead. I can't quit. I have responsibilities, but that option seems to be drawing closer minute by minute. So I'm sitting in the car praying, as I had for months, if not years, but more desperate than ever. God's Spirit said, "Surrender it to me. Give me your job, your house, your kids, your wife. No promises what would happen, no guarantees what he would do, but let go. I'm no longer responsible. Like a monkey with my hand caught in a trap, I let go of everything. Not knowing what that would mean, I hand everything over. You can take my job. I hand you responsibility for my kids. I hand you my marriage. I hand you the house. I'm not going to fight to keep any of it." God moved. If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. God's Spirit moved so powerfully over me in that car. It was like a waterfall. I wept and wept and wept. God poured out love upon love upon love. I didn't care about the job or the house as long as He was with me. My burdens lifted and the tears kept flowing. As the tears flowed, God poured out peace and love, grace and mercy, healing and restoration. In our weakness, He is strong.
Thank you. Thanks, mate. That was quite well read. So I'm sitting in the car and I'm dining at a table being served by God. So even though my physical realities hadn't changed, they're not enemies exactly. I was still faced with the practicalities of a shoddy house and decimated finances and the real possibility of losing a job. The difference was that I'd ceded it over to God and I trusted that He would provide whatever that looked like. And I stopped trying to manage it myself. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. So in the car, I started texting family and about how much I loved them, and I couldn't contain it. I was just overflowing. I was bursting with joy. It was like it from barren land to flood. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I told non-Christian friends and family, I just went, you can't tell you what happened, and they were fascinated, they just wanted to know more, they wanted the details, and it was just amazing. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed outside of that car. Everything was exactly the same. But God took over. The benefit of surrendering to God is not houses and cars and fame and fortune. The benefit of surrendering to God is God. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. God transformed my situation. My mind was restored. If I'd lost the job, I was confident I'd get another job. We sold the house, whatever. I knew I was okay. I knew that God had it completely in control. I happened to keep the job, and the builder ended up moving into an unfinished house, and the building commission ultimately took their licence away. And we're still living in a house with defects today. It doesn't matter. Sorry, I don't care. Interestingly, a year later, I was actually made redundant from that job, but I didn't panic, not like before. I knew that God had it in hand and that He's faithful. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So I see Psalm 23 as a cycle. I was back in the fields, I was back in the grass, and it's fabulous. But the cycle will continue. There's more to give up, there's more righteous paths to walk, and there's more valleys I'll face in my life as well. So perhaps the song lyrics might have a little bit of truth in them. You're never going to let me down. I interpret them now as you're never going to leave me. Because you are good. You're good. Thank you, Bert. Bert?